Hello, my name is Travis Valbert with GardenSphere, and today in our EnviroHouse how-to video, we're going to be talking about the blue orchard mason bee. The blue orchard mason bee is a native, docile, non-stinging bee that is excellent for pollination of especially our early season crops like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, etc. The mason bees form a cocoon which hatches sometime between early February and early March. They pollinize for a period of a couple of months and then return to their houses and lay eggs by June 1st, usually at the latest, to emerge the next year. There's a series of different ways of housing mason bees. You always want to start with a standard structure, such as this wood one here. A good structure is going to have an overlap of about an inch to protect the tubes from rain and wind. After that, the shape and the size of the house is up to you, and there are many wonderful ones on the market. The tubes inside the house are what the bees actually nest in. They look for a very specific diameter hole, and the depth has to be at least 5 to 6 inches in order for the cocoons to successfully develop. We're looking at 3 different types of tube housing here. The first is a very common cardboard tube. This one is set up with an insert so that you can remove the insert and replace in future years to keep the hygiene of the hive very good. The second type is a natural reed tube, and you'll notice there's a lot of variation on these guys. What reed is a grass that forms usually around wet areas, and the grass breaks off and the bees lay their eggs in the tops of the grass. Finally, for more experienced hobbyists and professionals, we use a wood block method like this, and that just sits into the larger wooden house where the tubes are. The wood blocks separate easily so that you can harvest cocoons and clean. Most backyard mason bee hobbyists just let their hives sit from year to year, but more experienced ones like to harvest the cocoons in the winter time and then put them back in the houses the following winter. Once the mason bees have come back to the house to nest, they'll lay their eggs and they will fill the end of the holes with mud. Once you see those mudded over tubes, which usually occurs in June, you know then that you have a successful colony for next year. It's important to keep in mind that mason bees are not honeybees. They're not forming a hive, they're not forming honey. Mason bees are basically living in an apartment complex with each bee being its own individual creature. Today we're going to be putting up a house at EnviroHouse for the mason bees. This is a very, very awesome, very inexpensive bee basic house. It's made out of 4-inch PVC. It comes pre-assembled. It comes with the tubes. What we're going to do is we're going to seed this house with the mason bees, and to do that it's a very simple process. We're going to start with those cocoons that we looked at the beginning. We're going to randomly select 10 or so holes, and we're going to gently slide the cocoons into the holes. As long as they fit in there comfortably, that is perfect. Once you've seeded your holes with all the cocoons that you have, normally mason bees start in sets of 10. Once you've done all those, we're ready to assemble the house. The back simply pops off. We're going to use a standard drill with a standard screw, and we're going to put 2 screws in there, and then the house will just gently slip into this mounting bracket. Now that we've successfully seeded our house, I've installed the mount 6 to 10 feet above ground level on the east side of the house. The last step is going to be we're just going to slip this house into the mount. The mason bees, although we started with only 10 cocoons, are going to go out and pollinize starting as early as February and come back by June. The mother bees are going to lay 5 to 6 eggs per tube that we have, which is why it's so important that the tubes are 5 to 6 inches deep. The males will be segregated into one end of the tube while the females are segregated into the other. When she's finished with that process, she will go out and collect local mud, and she will mud the front of those tubes over like we saw before. That's how they get their term mason bees, because essentially she's building a little bit of mortar. Again, my name's Travis Valbert. Thanks for watching our EnviroHouse how-to on mason bees. Do whatever you do well, and I'm going to finish off by installing this house.